The Mixed Martial Arts Show is back in your life on this Monday, July 9th, 2018. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani inside our New York City studios. I fixed my mic. I'm back from Las Vegas. I'm in New York City. I'm happy to be home. I had a lovely birthday yesterday. Thank you to everyone who sent me messages. I love you all. It was great to be home for a few minutes with my family after a very exciting week in Las Vegas. And boy, do we have a lot to discuss. Wow. What a show we have for you. Thank you very much for joining us on this Monday afternoon. Post UFC 226, my head is still spinning from that week in Las Vegas. There's so much to discuss. There's so much to break down. And it wasn't, all the news wasn't just on Saturday. A ton of stuff has happened since we last spoke. So what I want to do at the top of today's show, because like I said, there is a stacked lineup coming to you. Do not worry. But what I want to do at the top of today's show is almost run down the week leading up to Saturday, and of course what happened on Saturday, the craziness. By now you know Daniel Cormier is the new UFC heavyweight and light heavyweight champion. You know that he knocked out Stipe Miocic in the first round. You know that Brock Lesnar somehow appeared out of thin air. You know that he got into the cage. You know that he pushed DC. I'm assuming you know all of this, but we're still going to talk about it, of course, because everyone has an opinion on what happened in the fight, after the fight, where DC now ranks in the Mount Rushmore of mixed martial arts and UFC in particular. There's so much to discuss. But first, when we said goodbye, and by the way, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully we're all good here on the TV today. This is Ariel Helwani's MMA show on ESPN. I appreciate your continued support. It's all very exciting. When we said goodbye last week, signed off. Following day was Tuesday. MMA Awards. Want to give a quick shout out to everyone who voted for us. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. 8-time reigning defending champion. Like I said, I don't take it for granted. It means the world, especially because it's coming from the fans. I personally think that the Fighters Only Awards probably shouldn't have media awards or a category because it's Fighters Only and it should be about the fighters. It's always about the fighters in my opinion. But if they're going to give them out, happy to win. And feel strongly that it's not a singular award, but I just wanted to thank everyone once again here on the show who voted, and I appreciate your support more than you'll ever know, and your loyalty. So thank you very much for that. That was on Tuesday. Wednesday, July 4th, did the show with Chael on ESPN Plus, and that was Ariel and the Bad Guy. I hope you enjoyed it. Get back home, 2-hour drive from where I live to Bristol. Get back home, July 4th, my son asks me to take him to go see fireworks. My daughter's too young. My middle son is too young. They go to sleep. We sneak out. We go to the fireworks. In the middle of the fireworks, we're waiting for the fireworks to happen. They finally happen. Now it's starting to pick up because, fireworks are typically kind of slow. In the middle of the freaking fireworks, I get a heads up that Max Holloway may be out of his fight against Brian Ortega. So I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. Earlier in the day, I was talking to some colleagues at ESPN about, maybe this is the fight card that won't have any bad luck. Maybe it'll remain intact. And someone was saying, maybe Max Holloway is going to, or, it'll be all good. He'll make weight, no problems. Last time it was on short notice. There's no certainties in this sport. A few hours later, get the word. 30 minutes later, confirm it. It's out there. Max Holloway is out. Concussion-like symptoms. His manager, Brian Butler, confirms with me that he had been suffering from this late last week, went to the hospital on Monday, well before his weight cut, and was rushed to the hospital, was released from the hospital on Tuesday, went to do the media workouts, was slurring his words, started to see blurred, he had blurred vision, slurred speech. It was tough to wake him up, went back to the hospital, and Wednesday night he was ruled out. So then, of course, the reaction is, this thing is cursed. International Fight Week, 4th week in a row that there's a big change to the card. Of course, we all remember UFC 189, Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. Aldo pulled around 10 days before the fight. Then we remember UFC 200, John Jones, just 3 days before the fight, gets popped by USADA. That whole thing blows up. Of course, we remember last year, UFC 213, Amanda Nunes in Las Vegas, the day of the fight, pulls out due to sinusitis. And now here we are, 4th straight year, International Fight Week suffers a devastating blow. And so once he was officially out, and by the way, I know a lot of you asked to have him on the show. Of course, I reached out to both Max and his management, both very responsive, both said now is not the time, and I hope that you can appreciate that. Of course, I had to ask, but I do not want to push someone to speak, especially dealing with something like that. He should take his time, and whenever he's ready to speak, would love to speak to him. And first and foremost, absolutely wish him the best. And this is the thing that happens, and I get it. People are buying tickets. People are buying flights. They're booking hotels. I get it. You want to see, okay, what can the UFC do? What kind of rabbit can they pull out of their hat? And so we quickly move from being worried about a champion, one of the greatest fighters in the sport, a guy who's breaking all kinds of records, who's on the good side of his 20s, not even, closer to 30s, like 24, 25. Like we should be worried about these things. We should be caring about him. I get it that we want to be entertained. I understand. But the first thought should not be who can the UFC replace Max Holloway with. It should be how is Max Holloway feeling? Is he going to be okay? That should be the first thought, at least in my mind. That's typically not the first thought. And so the UFC, I get it from their perspective. They're a business. They're going to move on. They're going to try to figure something out. They want to, quote unquote, save the card, although the main event was still intact and it was still a great card. So I don't necessarily agree with the idea that the card needed to be saved. Nevertheless, they're going to try to fix something. And they went to Jeremy Stephens and they knocked on Jeremy Stephens' door. Jeremy Stephens answered that door and he began cutting weight. Brian Ortega said thanks, but no thanks. They quickly moved from Ortega. They went to Frankie Edgar, who actually considered it, but had a stem cell injection on his shoulder that his doctor told him afterwards he needed to, take it easy for 2 weeks, and that includes not taking a fight. So he was ruled out, and then Jeremy Stephens was left without an opponent. He'll remain on the Calgary card fighting Jose Aldo, which is a massive fight for him. They tried to do an interim title fight between Stephens and Ortega, interim title fight between Stephens and Edgar, which would have been very bizarre. In the end, they are left with nothing. And the thing that bothered me the most about that whole scene wasn't necessarily that, okay, they moved on, because I get it. They should move on at some point. They are a business. They're trying to fulfill their obligations. Cards subject to change. People bought tickets. Sold out crowd. You want to give them something. I get that. But what bothered me the most was that some way, somehow, Brian Ortega was painted as though he was the bad guy in all of this. Oh, you didn't step up. This is a guy like Brian Ortega. They don't fall from the sky, Brian Ortega's. This is a blue chip prospect in every sense of the word. He is a diamond in the rough. He is incredibly entertaining. He's incredibly talented. He's undefeated. He's good looking. He's smart. He's down to earth. He wants to help the world. He's starting foundations. He is a finisher. Like, he is everything that you want. He is young. The guy is on the cusp of realizing a dream. Talked about it on the show 2 weeks ago about driving home and going, to UFC 60 and telling himself that he is going to realize this dream. Don't put that pressure on him. Don't throw him under the bus. Don't make it seem like he didn't do his job. Don't make it seem like he didn't show up to work. What should have been said was, look, we tried, we get it, crap happens, let's move on. We'll all live to fight another day. We hope the best for Max. We tried, we did, but it's no one's fault. It's not Max's fault. It's certainly not Brian Ortega's fault. Jeremy Stephens was a soldier. Like, everyone comes out okay here. Do not pin this on Brian. And I felt at the press conference on Thursday, as we move towards Thursday now, I felt that at the press conference, Ortega and his team were painted as the villains. And that should not be the case. And this is sometimes the norm. You don't take the fight on short notice. We have, of course, the most famous one is John Jones. No, you don't need to step up. This is not Rock'em Sock'em Robots. They're not toys that you interchange. There is a game plan in place. You are peaking to fight a certain guy mentally. And again, I hope people recognize now 2 years ago what Daniel Cormier did as he's about to fight his longtime rival, and then he gets pulled and he fights Anderson Silva, and people booed him. Remember that night? I'd never been more upset with fans than that night when they booed Daniel Cormier as he won a decision over Anderson Silva, a fight that he took on 3 days' notice, but that's neither here nor there. We've already talked about that. Ortega was not the villain in all of this, and he should have been protected, in my opinion. He should not have been thrown under the bus. And from what I understand, and we'll talk to him later, things have been cleared up. But Ortega has earned the right to wait, and he earned the right to say thanks but no thanks. Anyone who sent that guy crap, you should be ashamed. You really should. He is not a yes man. He is not a guy who's going to just take any fight. Strategically, he got to this point. And look, no one knows better than Brian Ortega about taking a fight on short notice. Look what he just did to Frankie Edgar, who's on the cusp of a title shot, got knocked out, and then fell down the line. So to me, Brian Ortega did everything right. His team did everything right, and he should not have felt like he let anyone down. he did what he was supposed to do, and that's say, I will wait. Because you lose that fight, that title shot isn't coming for a long time. Who knows when it's going to come now? We still don't have a firm update on Max Holloway. So that was Thursday press conference. Then we get Daniel Cormier tripping over a speaker. And now we really think that the week is cursed. Thankfully, he was okay. But holy smokes, when he was down for a couple seconds, my mind was racing. You saw the look on Dana White's face. It was like he saw a ghost. He couldn't believe it. He was in shock. He thought he was living, a real-life nightmare. In the end, Cormier is okay. We get to the Hall of Fame, and I must quickly touch on this. I thought the Hall of Fame was great. I thought it was in a better venue. I thought it was quaint. I thought it was quick. It was 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. I thought the speeches were on point. I thought the tribute to Bruce Connell, the late Bruce Connell, longtime producer of the UFC, was phenomenal. One of the best pieces of video the UFC has ever put together. I thought the Sarah speech was fun. I thought the Longo speech was fun. Hendo was cool. Nice to hear from Shogun. I thought the Ronda Rousey speech was not good. And I'm just being... I didn't know who she was talking about. Who was she referring to? Was she referring to herself? Was she referring to the UFC? Was she referring to Dana White? Was she referring to women? Was she referring to other fighters? Was she referring to young girls in the crowd? I had no idea who she was talking about. I still don't know who she was talking about. Who was she talking about in that speech? Who was she referring to? It wasn't quite Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame speech, which of course has been immortalized as one of the worst ever because he had this massive chip on his shoulder and of course he was crying and the crying Jordan me. But it was like a notch below. It was void. Again, I'll say what I said leading up to this. It was too soon. The wound is too fresh. It was way too soon. Way too soon to do this. Nice to see her there. Nice to see a smile on her face. It was a cool moment, but it fell flat. In any event, you can't win them all. Overall, it was the best Hall of Fame ceremony, at least in my opinion, that they've ever done. And they continue to build momentum, and it's becoming a thing. Friday, we have the tough finale. Israel Adesanya is a legit player at 185. He thoroughly dominates. He outclasses Brad Tavares. Who saw that coming? Anyone like myself who said it was too soon for him, we were wrong. I maintain you could have gone with an easier fight, but that was pretty darn easy for Israel Adesanya, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. Brad Tavares is super tough, super durable. It was a darn impressive performance. I mean, it was just a showcase. And he's saying all the right things afterwards. What a great win. What a breakout win. Way more impressive than his other two wins, in my opinion, and in particular the Marvin Vettori win. That was huge. Bright lights, main event, Las Vegas. Israel Adesanya showed up, and he is a star. He has it all. Some other great moments. First Canadian tough winner from a regular tough. Brad Katonah, who we'll be speaking to later. Roxanne Modafferi, who we'll be speaking to later, also with a big win. Violent Bob Ross. Luis Pena with a big win. So tough was fun. It dragged on forever. It felt like it was 9 hours long, but there were some nice moments. And then we get to Saturday. And then we get to UFC 226. And thankfully the card remains intact from where it was Wednesday night after the Max Holloway dropout. And then we get to a really fun card. We get to great finishes. We get to Dan Hooker doing his thing. We get to Rafael Sunsao with another win. Things got a little slow there in the middle, but then we get to Paulo Costa versus Uriah Hall. What a fight that was. Costa is a specimen. He is maybe the most beautiful man I've ever seen. He's one of the most good-looking human beings that I've ever laid eyes on, male or female. I mean, what is going on there? Where are those genes coming from? It's unbelievable. Beats Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall looked great, by the way. I thought it was one of the better Uriah Halls that we've seen in quite some time. But Paulo Costa hits like a truck. He hits like a freaking truck. What a great win for him. Then we get to the main card. Khalil Roundtree knocks out Gokhan Saki. By the way, the lone blemish from my picks last week, I just want to note that. The lone blemish, I picked Saki. We'll talk to Khalil. I'll apologize to him. This is why I don't make picks, although I did win the draft. We'll get to that later on with New York Rick. Khalil Roundtree with the big win. Knocks him out early. Spectacular. Anthony Pettis is back. And I said this to Chael on the post-fight show. I think every time Pettis wins, we want to say Anthony Pettis is back. This was the best Pettis, I think, that we've seen in quite some time. But I still think he needs to win 2, 3, 4 in a row for us to really say that he is back. I think we all want to see him back. I think we all are wondering why he fell so quickly. The 145 drop was a big mistake. That was a great win over Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa missed weight prior to the fight, said on the scale that he will not be cutting to 155 ever again. We'll be talking to him in a bit. I revealed in our post-fight show on ESPN Plus that he broke his foot 2 weeks ago, and surely that had to have affected his weight cut. They don't want to make excuses. I don't even know if he'll talk about it, but that did. In the end, though, Pettis was better. There's no doubt about that. Pettis was better, and I'm curious to see now if he can win 2, 3, 4 in a row, and if we can really get on a roll here with him. So Pettis gets the big win. Mike Perry with the big win over Paul Felder. Bloody fight. At the weigh-ins, it didn't seem like there was a size discrepancy. In the fight, it felt like there was a size discrepancy. And you can throw Paul Felder's name in the hat, another name in the 165-pound hat. I think he would be perfect at 165. Too big for 155, too small for 170. Nice to see Perry get back on track. We'll talk to him later on in the show. But it felt like he was a little too big for Paul Felder. It was a great Mike Perry, still his old self, but with a new team surrounding him, the Jackson Wing team. Good to see him get back on track. And Felder on Twitter afterwards breaks your heart. You see him sitting there in the hospital, can't get stitched up. There's dry blood all over his face. Fought with a messed up shoulder. Heard it very early on. And so I feel for him. Took the fight on short notice. I wonder if he'll go back to 170. Was trying to reach out to him, but didn't get in touch in time. Then we get to the co-main event, of course. Francis Ngannou versus Derrick Lewis. And this is a fight that, of course, we had all been foaming at the mouth about. We had been talking about it for a year and a half. They had been going back and forth. The weigh-ins were fun, the pushing, all that stuff and more. And unfortunately, it ends up being one of the worst fights in UFC history due to a lack of activity. And I'm not personally offended by the fight. I saw the people doing the wave. I saw the people, doing their phones, the concert thing with the lights. The first thing I thought of was Derrick Lewis's back was messed up. And the second thing I thought of was Francis Ngannou is gun shy. And so I feel like there are legitimate reasons why they fought that way. And I saw Francis Ngannou's apology, and I don't necessarily feel like he has to apologize, and I appreciate him being that honest. He's gun shy. He's affected by his last performance. This is a real thing. Again, they're not robots. They can't just erase what happened 6 months ago. And Lewis is in a tremendous amount of pain. If you've heard him on this show, the guy gets magnesium shots every week. He's got to figure that out. So I wasn't bothered by it. It wasn't a good fight. It did not live up to the hype. But I understood, even before talking to them, what was happening. But again, I understand the frustration. To me, there are reasons. It wasn't just two guys who were on a winning streak and decided not to fight. There are legitimate reasons why they fought that way. So that's that. We'll talk to Derrick Lewis in a second. But now let's talk about the main event here. In the main event, Daniel Cormier goes in there, and the big story was he weighed more than Stipe Miocic at the weigh-ins. He weighed 20 pounds more than he did the last time he fought at heavyweight, which was at 166. And it looked a little bit like he was out of shape, right? It looked like he did not come in disciplined. And so, DC supporters were worried. Like, did he take his foot off the gas? Is this BJ Penn against GSP back at UFC 94? Stipe starts off strong. Stipe looks good early. And then essentially midway through, DC catches him, drops him down to the ground, knocks him out, and makes history. Spoke to him not that long ago. He sent me a picture of his hand. You may have seen it wrapped up. It's gigantic. It looks like the size of a grapefruit. So he's getting it checked out, and hopefully we'll be able to check in with him in a matter of moments. But what a scene. The thing I could not stop thinking about, there were so many things that came to mind. Look, you all know how highly I think of Daniel Cormier, and I think very highly of Stipe too. Been through a lot with DC. Couldn't help but think about last year, almost exactly to the day. He's in the cage. He gets knocked out by his bitter rival. And there he is crying. And instantly, I remember Bleacher Report, I remember many outlets turning him into a meme, turning him into a GIF. And I remember telling him afterwards, that was the best thing to ever happen to you, because people like real, people like authentic. People don't mind if you cry. He is infinitely more popular today than he was going into that fight last year against John Jones. People love him. He's the underdog. And now look what he's done. A year later, he knocks out the heavyweight champion. He's now 14-0 as a heavyweight, 7-1 and 1 no contest as a light heavyweight. In my opinion, in the discussion for the greatest of all time, it's him, it's GSP, it's Demetrius Johnson. John Jones certainly in that mix. He makes things a little more confusing as far as DC is concerned, but right now he's disqualified, as we all know. For DC, who never got an opportunity to fight for the heavyweight title, who should have fought for the heavyweight title after UFC 166, but you'll recall the champion that night was Cain Velasquez, didn't want to fight his friend, went down at UFC 170 to fight Patrick Cummins. It was supposed to be Rashad Evans. This guy should have been heavyweight champion a long time ago. If he was not friends with the champ, I have no doubt in my mind, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that he would be the champion for years already. And I loved what he said. I never got to realize how good I could be at this weight. Daniel Cormier is a better heavyweight than he is light heavyweight, and that is a shocking, shocking statement. But we know for sure after Saturday, after what he did to Stipe Miocic, that he is a better champion at heavyweight than he was at light heavyweight, or is at light heavyweight. And he finally got to realize that. He finally got to find out just how good he is as a heavyweight. How could you not be happy for that guy who has been through it all, through hell? He has been through hell. His father murdered when he was a kid, Thanksgiving. His daughter passes away when she's just months old. Fails in the Olympic Games, misses weight in the Olympic Games, loses to Jon Jones, loses to Jon Jones again. And now he's a double champion, just the second man in UFC history to hold 2 belts at the same time. And I'm not knocking Conor when I say this, but Conor got the lightweight title shot because he is the most popular fighter in the history of the sport. He did not necessarily earn on merit the lightweight title shot. DC earned the heavyweight title shot. That's the crazy part. 13-0 as a heavyweight. Wins over Roy Nelson, wins over Frank Mir, wins over Josh Barnett, wins over Bigfoot Silva, and not today's Bigfoot Silva, Frank Mir, Roy Nelson. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, those guys, in their primes, flipping them over his head. DC, in my opinion, is no longer one of the most underappreciated fighters, and I've been banging that drum, and you all know I've been banging that drum for years now. He is now in the discussion for one of the greatest ever. You tell me right now to my face he's the greatest of all time, I have a very hard time arguing that. I have a very hard time. The reason I put him a notch below GSP is because GSP avenged his 2 losses, Matt Hughes, Matt Serra. Unfortunately, Daniel has yet to avenge the Jon Jones fight. So he wins the fight. He knocks out Stipe. And ever the showman, he has the presence of mind to call out Brock Lesnar, because right before the fight, Brock Lesnar appears cage side. He's there. He's wearing this 3-piece suit. He's wearing the black shirt under the suit. It's a total mess of a situation. He's got his vest on. He's got the cowboy boots. His pants are tucked in. But holy smokes, when he is there, it is a show. He is larger than life. DC wins and hardly gives himself a moment to celebrate, calls out Brock. Asks Brock to come in the cage. Brock comes in the cage willingly, pushes DC. Greatest scene in that whole exchange is that Rosendo Sanchez, DC's boxing coach, 5'3", 5'4" at best, pushes Brock. Comes out of nowhere and pushes Brock. This guy is literally an ant to an elephant compared to Brock Lesnar. Pushes Brock out of nowhere, and then the whole thing gets cleared up. Brock gets on the mic, calls Ngannou a bad word, calls Miocic a bad word, pushes the microphone into the camera. All hell is breaking loose. DC says, push me now, get slept later. Tells him to get out of the cage. I need to take some pictures. It was bananas. It reminded me of UFC 100 when Brock was like foaming at the mouth and was talking about, Bud Light and all this stuff, Coors Light and his wife. It was bananas like that. And the world was watching because it was the biggest story of the night. And I know a lot of people got all worked up about this. And I know a lot of people said, oh, the UFC is turning into pro wrestling. Lest we forget that Brock Lesnar was once 1-1 as a heavyweight and got a title shot off of that. Lest we forget that this whole thing started when some promoter named Art Davey and others just took a bunch of guys and tried to figure out who's the baddest man in the world. This is not new. This is absolutely not new. This doesn't bother me. I'm not offended. We are not ruining the sanctity of the sport by booking this fight. This is the biggest fight that the UFC could put on right now involving those 2 individuals. It's going to do well over $1 million. It might even surpass any fight that DC ever had with Jon Jones. It is a scene. It is a spectacle. But I'll tell you the one thing I don't like about this fight. The one thing I don't like about this fight is that when Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana White made a deal with the United States Anti-Doping Agency to allow them to be the independent body to oversee their anti-doping policy, the deal was that we are going to be transparent. No longer are we under the commission's rule. We're going with these guys to be as transparent as possible and to do things the right way. We sit here today, and Lord knows I've tried, as recently as yesterday, to gain clarification as to whether or not Brock Lesnar is in the testing pool, Whether or not he's able to fight in November, in December, in January, whether or not there's 5 or 6 months left, for him to be tested, for his suspension to run out, we have no idea Brock Lesnar's availability. We do not know how many months are left on his suspension. We do not know if he is already being tested. We have no idea. And so with that in mind, I feel a little uncomfortable about all of this because this should be readily available. They should come out right away. Brock Lesnar was in the cage. It has been announced by the promoter of the UFC that this man is going to fight for the belt. We need to know his status. We should not be banging on their door continuously, getting no responses about the state of a guy who, by the way, got into this mess in the first place due to lack of transparency, due to bending of the rules. Don't forget about UFC 200. Could you imagine what Mark Hunt is thinking right now seeing all of this? They are in the midst of a lawsuit regarding this very issue. And now here he is. We're going to turn a blind eye to all of it, and we're going to book him in a title fight. Again, let me repeat. I have no problem with Brock Lesnar fighting Daniel Cormier if I knew that Brock Lesnar is already being tested, that he has 5 months left, that come January 1st, January 12th, pick the date, he is able to fight. But we don't know that. How is that possible? If the UFC was controlling its own drug testing, if this was the WWE, I get it. We keep that stuff behind the curtain. This is the United States Anti-Doping Agency. They oversee Olympic testing. This stuff should be available via 3 clicks on the internet. How is it possible that we do not know his status? How is that possible? Please answer that. How is that possible that we do not know the status of one Brock Lesnar? And yet he is being booked essentially in a title fight. That is absurd. That is unbelievable to me. They need to come out with a statement today and say that Brock Lesnar has entered the pool, has not entered the pool, will enter the pool, has X amount of time left. This should not be so confusing. This should not be so hush-hush. This is how we got into this problem with Brock Lesnar, UFC 200. This is why we signed with USADA, I thought, for transparency, right? The website, the 25 things that they give out to all the people. This is why we do this, right? Isn't this to be on the up and up? It doesn't feel like it's on the up and up right now. So again, I don't mind the shoving. I don't mind the microphone. It's fun. Stop taking yourself so seriously. But please, for the love of God, tell us what his status is. Because I feel we're talking about this fight when we're talking about a suspended fighter. We're talking about a fighter who may not even be in the testing pool, who's not even doing the proper things to get back. That makes no sense. It's going to be a gigantic fight. DC and Lesnar are a match made in heaven. The trash talk will be off the charts. It's going to be fun. I just want to know when he is available. That's all. I just want to know when this whole thing is starting. When's the clock ticking? When's that happening? That's what I want to know. It was a fun week. Happy to be back. Got to celebrate my 36th birthday on the post-fight show. Thank you to everyone who sent wishes. Thank you to my team at ESPN for giving me a cake. Gilbert Melendez brings out the cake with DC sitting there, the 2 belts, Chael Sonnen. It was unbelievable. I heard from everyone who said they missed the typical coverage. Just be patient. 3rd week here. Be patient. Please, be patient. I got you. I've always said I got you. Just be patient with me for a second. All right? I love you. I got you. Don't worry. Now, let me run down today's lineup. And hopefully then we'll get to our first guest of the day because my oh my, do we have a lot to talk about. So, in a matter of moments, I'm being told we are going to be joined by the reigning defending UFC light heavyweight and heavyweight champion, the champ himself, the double champ himself, the champ, whatever the hell you want to call him, the living legend, the one and only, Daniel Cormier will be joining us. 125, 130 in a matter of seconds here. After that, we'll be joined by Derrick Lewis. Talk to him about what happened, the back, the state of the back, the win over Francis Ngannou, where he goes from here. Does he get surgery? Does he not get surgery? After that, we'll talk to Michael Chiesa. Talk to him about the loss, Anthony Pettis, the foot, the weight cut, 170, 155. After that, we'll talk to Israel Adesanya, of course, one of the big winners on Friday. The win over Brad Tavares, where he goes from here. Does he want Paulo Costa? Is he going to get Paulo Costa? Dana White didn't seem all that into the fight. He liked the fact that he called him out, but didn't love the fight, it seemed. So we'll find out where his mind is. After that, we'll talk to Luis Pena, a.k.a. Violent Bob Ross. I saw Luis Pena in person for the first time, and I was just in awe of his look. That man has it, whatever it is. It's a different kind of it than Paulo Costa's it, but it is an it. The hair, the beard, the look, the nickname, the vibe. I'm on the bandwagon, the Luis Pena bandwagon. He's got the pick. He's got it all. Roxanne Modafferi picked up her very first win. It took her 5 years to pick up her first Octagon win. She did so on Friday against Barb Honchak. I can't wait to talk to her about that. We have talked to her many times over the years, but never after a UFC win, so I'm looking forward to that. Brian Ortega will join us after Roxanne. Talk to him about his unfortunate week, where he goes from here. I was sitting next to Ortega's family at the fight. There was literally like 50, 60 people there wearing Ortega shirts. My heart broke for them. What a bummer. But again, he made the right call. After that, we'll talk to Anthony Smith. It was announced last week that he'll be fighting Shogun Rua in Hamburg, July 22nd. That's the new main event after Volkan Ozdemir did not get cleared to travel. Why he was booked again in an international fight, I have no idea. But anyway, he didn't get cleared to travel. So now he's fighting August 4th against Alexander Gustafsson. And we've got Anthony Smith fighting Shogun Rua in the main event. Alil Latifi injured out of the co-main event. So it's now Glover Teixeira versus Corey Anderson in the co-main event. So the Hamburg card went through all kinds of changes last week as well. After that, we'll talk to Mike Perry. Talk to him about the win over Paul Felder, where he goes from here, etc. We'll talk to Jeremy Stevens after Platinum Perry around 105. Talk to him about accepting those fights on short notice, them not coming to fruition, having to cut weight, and then, of course, taking your foot off the gas and what's next. And the Jose Aldo fight in Calgary, and if he will be fighting for a title after that. After Jeremy Stevens, we'll talk to Demetrius Johnson. Been a while since we talked to him, the reigning defending UFC flyweight champion. Would love to get his take on the GOAT discussion. Certainly he has a say in all of that. And, of course, we are now counting down the days to UFC 227. That's August 4th in Los Angeles. He meets Henry Cejudo in the co-main event, the main event. And hopefully these two fights remain intact. I'm looking forward to them. TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. After that, we'll talk to Khalil Roundtree about his big win over Gokhan Saki, the knockout, and having a massive chip on his shoulder, it seems. No one thought that he'd be able to knock out Khalil Roundtree. Roundtree has a fascinating backstory, so I'm looking forward to talking to him for the first time on the program. After that, we will talk to Brad Katonah, the 145-pound winner of the Ultimate Fighter. And what a great moment for the True North Strong and Free. By the way, happy Canada Day. Happy July 4th last week. The True North Strong and Free has its first regular Ultimate Fighter winner. Of course, there was once the Smashes version and all that, but this is a regular Ultimate Fighter winner. Brad Katonah, who trains out of SBG in Ireland, who has one of the more unique accents that I've ever heard. It's like a mix between someone from like the Midwest of Canada, like the prairies, and someone from Ireland. It's very bizarre. And then after that, we'll talk to Malki Kawa, who is John Jones's manager, told me that he has had some conversations with John Jones. I couldn't help but think on Saturday night, what does John Jones think about all of this, right? This was supposed to be his destiny. This was supposed to be his moment. He was the one who talked about going to heavyweight. He was the one who talked about being double champ. He was the one who said, I'm going to win light heavyweight and then go to heavyweight. He was the one who wanted the Brock Lesnar fight. Remember, after the win over Daniel Cormier, he was the one who called out Brock Lesnar. I couldn't help but think what he was thinking on that night. Still suspended. We still don't have an update on his status. But man, he has popped up. He's not hiding. He has certainly popped up. He actually wrote a really nice thing to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou went on Instagram just a couple of minutes ago and wrote a really nice thing. I saw Jimmy Manuwa do the same. But I just couldn't help but think what John Jones was thinking. So we'll check in with Malki about that. And we'll get this train moving along. Some other news that happened as we are going to connect with DC in a matter of moments. Kelvin Gastelum and Robert Whitaker will go down as the final coaches in the history of the Ultimate Fighter, at least for now, unless they revive the darn thing at some point. But they will go down as the last two in this era. And it's for the heavyweights and the women's featherweights. curious about that talent. That show begins filming this week in Las Vegas. So it's going to be Kelvin Gastelum versus Robert Whittaker, and the winner, the two are going to fight for the belt later on this year or early next year. The real issue is Robert Whittaker's hand. Robert Whittaker had surgery on his hand after the win over Yoel Romero, and they're not quite sure if he'll be ready for December or so. So they're not pinning that fight on a particular date. But they will fight in the very near future, and they're going to be coaching the final season of The Ultimate Fighter. All right, let's get rolling with the show here. There was only one way that we could possibly start this show, and it's with the man who made history on Saturday night. It is with the man who is now the heavyweight and light heavyweight champion of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the one and only Daniel Cormier. Always true to his word, part of the victory tour. Have a little chat after the win. DC, are you there?
Yes, I am.
DC, you're at the doctor right now, right?
I am. I'm about to get in the Uber, so I'm trying to be a little bit quiet. But like right now, I'm talking really low, but inside I'm yelling, "Can you believe this shit?"
So I guess, okay, but before I ask you about how you're feeling internally, can you give us an update on your hand?
Yeah, man, I just left the doctor. My doctor in San Jose called Stidham, did a surgery on me when I was breaking my hand against Bigfoot Silva and Josh Barnett, and it's perfect. But I broke the fingers. I broke the finger at the knuckle, right above where I have a plate and 6 screws. I just saw Dr. Sanders, and I have a break at the tip of my finger, at the knuckle of my finger.
Wow.
Pointer finger.
So do you need surgery?
No surgery. They said some time.
Just need to lay off it.
Yep, I gotta take some time to start hitting things again.
Yeah.
And everything.
And certainly you are owed that time. By the way, did you injure your back going into this fight as well? Dana White said that at the post-fight press conference that you actually had to take some time off training. Is that true?
Yes, it's true. But that's kind of self-inflicted. You know, just being heavier and having to train, it really did take a toll on my body. You know, in the beginning of training camp, I was having some difficulties because of the weight, you know. So it was like I was so used to training at around 230 that when I was training at 245, 250, every morning I was more sore. I was supposed to do this EA Sports thing, and on Friday I hurt my back so terribly that I was just laying in bed when I was supposed to be coming to Vegas to do an appearance. So I had to cancel it and take a little bit of time off in the middle of camp before the fight.
And were you worried that you wouldn't fight, or was it not that serious?
It was all scary, man. It's all real scary, you know, like you don't know what's going to happen when you're hurting, you know, because when you're crawling around the house or when you're just kind of crawling around the house and not able to train like you want to train, you question if you're going to be able to do it. So it was a little bit worrisome, but I always wanted to go and do the fight.
DC, is it possible to put into words what the last 36 hours have been like for you? Like, has the reality actually sunk in that you did this, that you accomplished your goal? You're a heavyweight champion. You're a light heavyweight champion. You realized how good you can be as a heavyweight. Has it sunk in or not yet?
I think I try to just take things in. I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's supposed to feel different, or I don't know if I'm supposed to be, like, bouncing off the walls or anything. I just kind of feel like, honestly, almost the same. Like, I don't feel any different, if I got to be honest with you. I think people view me different. I thought it was amazing that after one day, how it's so hard to kind of do anything. I went to dinner yesterday, and it was just it was a nightmare, man. It was really bad going to dinner, and then even that you know, we do these after parties after the fights, and on Saturday night, I went to this place in Vegas that I usually host after parties, and normally they're pretty fun, but on Saturday it was unbelievable. Because
people were just crowding you and flocking to you.
Oh man, people were there, people were crowded, people were grabbing me. TMZ Sports, she was there, TMZ was there. It was just, that place was like, they were like, I was like, this is crazy. They're like, yeah. much different than it was a few years ago when you used to come host your parties. And I was like, this is insane. So many people. It was so crowded. It was crazy.
But if you're able to remove yourself from that annoyance, it has to feel good that you find, like, to me, the biggest thing about you and your career was I always felt like you were underappreciated. I always felt like people could not give you the respect that you deserve because of the Jones losses, even though that you were beating everyone else. It has to feel like, okay, finally I'm vindicated. Finally I have been validated, right?
Well, I told you guys I told everybody on Saturday that it just felt like to finally do something completely outside of that rivalry is probably the most satisfying thing, because we really don't know what I would have become in heavyweight division if not for Kane, So it felt good to kind of complete that portion of my journey. Now it's just a matter of what happens next. It feels good. Really, it really does feel good.
Can you compare the feeling when Dana White put the belt around your waist to the first time you became a champion? UFC 187 was a big deal when you beat Anthony Johnson because you finally became a champion at something. How does this one compare? Better?
It's unbelievable. Yeah, this one was the biggest. It was almost like I was in shock. And I don't know if maybe that was because of the result or because I was, I'm the UFC heavyweight champion. I don't know, It's like sometimes you experience things that are so big that you truly can't comprehend them. And I think that's what I'm feeling right now, I don't know how I just did something so big.
When you game planned for this, you didn't think that you'd actually be able to knock him out that soon, right? Like, is that a shock in its own right?
I saw some openings, and we knew that, that's why I weighed 245 pounds, because in the midst of camp, I was really putting it on dudes. I've got a training partner, and this guy told me that last time we fought at 205, he said, D, he goes, it was always good. He said, you always hit me good. But he goes, I never felt or anything. He goes, I got knocked down 5 times in this one training camp with some sort of strike. And he's like, this is amazing. He goes, you're going to beat this dude. And he was so confident. And all my training partners just were telling me how if I find the shot, I was going to put him out. And it happened, I think those guys had a little more confidence in that result than I did. But it happened that way, and it happened just a lot faster than I thought.
Did the leg bother you at all in the fight? The spill at the press conference, was that a factor at all?
No, it didn't. It's so hard, Ariel, to be hurt whenever you have that much adrenaline going through you. Like, yeah. There's so much energy. You were in there. The T-Mobile Arena was on fire Saturday night.
Yeah.
It had that big fight feel. It was awesome. I loved it. It was just, man, I just can't believe that I've been in so many of these big spots.
It's unbelievable, and it was great to see you get that moment. And then, of course, you get the moment, and it's like, just, this is you in a nutshell. It's like you did the same thing when you beat Rumble. You move on to the next moment. You don't even give yourself a minute to appreciate the moment. Do you regret that?
Don't breathe. Nope, don't breathe. I'm not sitting there letting it breathe. To hell with that. Who's next? Right? Like, who's next? This is my thing, Helwani. The first time I won against Rumble, Jones was on a suspension. He had beaten me, and I wanted to fight him again, so of course I'm going to call him out. And then this time, I was standing in the Octagon before the fight, and Lesnar standing there smirking. Like, you're supposed to be there as a spectator, Lesnar, but you're up there smirking, What are you smirking about? I'm in the dark listening to MGK. Stipe's coming out, the greatest heavyweight of all time. A guy that can really fight. And Lesnar's over there trying to distract me. What are you smirking about, Lesnar?
Looking at you.
Looking at me through the fence. Now, I'm trying not to make eye contact with Lesnar because, when you're in the Octagon, any type of threat, you want to go and take it out. And Lesnar's over there looking at me. I'm in the Octagon wanting to go get up here then. I can get done with him before Stipe even gets to the ring.
I know you said that you saw him when you were doing sprints, but did they give you a heads up like a day or so before that he was coming?
No, like that's the thing, man. Like, why wouldn't they tell me? You know, it's like
Jeez.
you can get distracted, right? Because when you see something like that, right, and you think I'm fighting for the heavyweight title, there's been all these reports that Brock Lesnar may be coming back, and then the guy just shows up right before you fight. I mean, it's hard to not think about what happens if I get this done. You know, that's kind of a scary thing. You know, so running those sprints and I'm walking, all of a sudden I see like almost like a big old security team as I'm about to head back into the arena, and it's Brock. And now I'm trying not to look at him. Right? I'm trying to like keep him behind me as I go back to my locker room to get ready to fight. It was crazy.
So okay, so you call him in, and it's a great promo. When you call him in, listen to DC. I've watched it a million times. You have his whole resume. It's unbelievable that you can even remember that after fighting. And then he walks in, he pushes you. You know what everyone has said: scripted, WWE, Vince McMahon,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. What's your response to that?
Man, I didn't expect him to push me, right? So I kind of went like we were going to do a really intense face-off, you know, like I'm about to face off Brock Lesnar, you know. I'm the happy-go-lucky guy. I just got my belt. I'm going in there to stare him down. I want to give you a visual, right, of how big this dude is, the size difference, everything else. But then Brock walks up right up to me and pushes me, and I'm like, whoa. I was like, whoa. I didn't expect this. I was like, I'll slap you right now, you know, but my kids were there. You know, yeah. I don't want them to see their dad beating up Brock Lesnar. You know, it's crazy. Daniel, when he pushed him, you can see Daniel peeking around the corner going, "Don't you push my dad."
No.
He was mad. I swear he was mad, but he wasn't like brave enough to run on Brock Lesnar. The only one that was brave enough to fight Brock Lesnar was Rosendo.
The best. That was the best.
He pushed him. He pushed Brock Lesnar. What?
And then Dana pushes him out of the way. Do you see that? Dana's like, "Get out of here, Rosendo."
He was like, "What are you doing, Rosendo?" And I didn't even know Dana knew Rosendo's name. Rosendo, what are you doing?
Oh, that was the best. But I have to say, Luke Rockhold looked mighty good in his white pants just standing there. I mean, can he get a little dirty? Jeez, Luke.
You know, Luke was all pissed off before we went to the arena. He goes, "What is Brock Lesnar doing here?" He was like, "What is going on?" Well, he wants to fight Brock from the beginning. So he has to try to contain himself so he doesn't go crazy on Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is a brave son of a gun because he went right into the wolf's lair in there with me and all my coaches and called Stipe a piece of crap, and
Yep.
Stipe standing right behind him, and Stipe would kick his ass.
Yeah. Luke looked like he was about to go on like a yacht ride or something.
I said, "Dang, Luke, you look like you model for Polo."
And so when that whole thing ended, Brock left. Nothing else happened between you two, right? Like there's nothing that happened behind the scenes.
I don't even know where he went. Okay. I was like, where'd he go? Because once you do the pictures, you know, they kind of you get. I got my moment. You know, I got my moment to just sit there and take my pictures. There's this great picture right now from where the camera kind of fades back off of me, and I'm on top of the octagon with two belts. And it's like me on top of the octagon, all the people behind me with me holding up the UFC championships. That is a visual that is going to last a lifetime, man. And that's the thing that I always wanted for my career. And now I got it. It's amazing.
There's no part of you that says, "Let me go out like this," right?
You know, I read that in a couple places, like, how can it get any bigger? And it's very tempting to say, this is it, right? This is the curtain call. This is you, Daniel. You're the guy that got nominated for an Academy Award 10 times and never won. And on your very last movie, right as you're about to die, you win one. Go. You know, you go out happy. But it's like, I'm not leaving because I'm not competitive. You know what I'm saying? I'm going because it's something that we've decided as a family. If I just wanted to fight, I think I could fight until I'm 42, 43 years old. We're only stopping because it's something we decided a long time ago that we wanted to do. So it's not because I can't compete.
Brock is 100% next, right?
No, they haven't told me that for sure. Like, they haven't told me that for sure, but it seems that way. And then with Dana saying that, you know, we're going to fight next, all I can do is get excited about it.
But you have no idea if he's in the pool, out of the pool, if his suspension is ticking down. Do you have any idea, any clarity on that?
No, I haven't talked to anybody about any of that stuff. I mean, I just won on Saturday, so I'm just kind of taking it in, just letting everything settle, and knowing that I have a big, big, big fight coming up.
Do you have any concerns about whether or not he's clean or not when you fight him?
He needs to be clean. I'm not going to fight him if he isn't clean. I've done that enough. I'm only going to fight him if he's clean. We're going to do our testing. Bob is really concerned about that. He said he wants to do the USADA testing, which is the gold standard of testing. But he also wants to try to see if there's any next level of testing we should do for this guy, because we got to make sure he's clean when he goes into that octagon.
Okay, so let's say his testing starts today and his suspension is down. You can only fight around January or so. You have already said that you're done in March. Are you at peace with the fact that it's one more fight left? Or now does the timeline get pushed just a little bit?
No, it doesn't get pushed. I mean, either maybe the Lesnar gets pushed to Super Bowl weekend or something. Maybe that fight gets pushed, and I just knock one in that light heavyweight before. That's how you maneuver around that. Brock Lesnar will get his. Brock Lesnar will be the next heavyweight I fight. Brock Lesnar is not guaranteed to be my next fight. If that makes sense.
You really would do it? You really would put your body through that again? Just fight another heavyweight? Really? For what?
Yep.
You beat Alex already. You beat Volkan already.
Maybe I'll go fight Shogun. That would be good.
Stop it.
Maybe I'll go fight Shogun. No, I'm serious. Maybe I'll go fight Shogun. Because Shogun's won a lot of fights in a row.
Yeah.
You know what? That's who I want to fight. Shogun wins, I want to fight Shogun. I want to fight.
Yes. Okay. If Shogun wins on July 22nd, you want to fight him?
Yeah, I'll go fight Shogun because he's a legend. He's a great guy. I'll go fight Shogun, and then I'll fight Brock Lesnar. Because Jones ain't going to be back, I don't think.
And you're at peace with that?
Yep. I'm at peace with that.
And would your hand, realistically, when could you return with the hand?
If I could fight around November, December, January, February, March. Yep. If I fought around December, I bet I could fight again around February, March.
And then you retire in March.
If I fought around November, I bet I could fight again in March, and it'd be okay.
This is why you're so crazy. You're not even giving yourself a second to appreciate this moment. You're already laying out your next two fights and want to cut back down to 205, put your body through that. You looked so happy on the scale. You looked like everyone just wanted to hug you up there. You're just so happy. You're full. You had a nice meal. Why do it? I don't get it. But I guess that's what makes you you.
I had a big breakfast, too. I had a big, nice breakfast right before weigh-in. I had a huge breakfast. It was crazy. Ian Larios, my nutritionist, he was feeding me. A couple times I was like, hey, man, is this right? Are you even measuring these portions? Because I don't know if I'm supposed to be eating this much. It just felt so abnormal to have that much food in my body when I was in training camp. But, yeah, maybe Shogun fights, and he does a good job. Maybe I'll go fight Shogun, a legend, somebody I respect. Go fight Shogun, and then after that, go back fight heavyweight. And also kind of just stick it to Gustafsson. Fight Shogun and stick it to Gustafsson.
Why do you want to stick it to Gus? You're annoyed that he keeps asking for an interim belt?
Oh, my goodness. Man, he keeps asking for an interim belt. And then it's almost like he's acting like he beat me last time. I'm like, dude, I beat you 4 rounds to 1. The only reason people questioned the other round was because he knocked me down in the third. But I was beating that dude. Look, man, I like Gus. Or at least I did like Gus a lot. But then all of a sudden he just became very obnoxious in the sense that he was asking for the interim title, Ariel, and then he calls out Luke Rockhold a day after Luke Rockhold gets knocked out. That's annoying, man. It's like when Kane lost to Verdun, it would have been like everybody going, I want to fight Kane. Leave the guy alone, man. The guy just got beat. Yoel Romero's a savage. People don't even know the damage that Luke took in that fight. And it's like, you're calling the guy out a day later. You know, it looks like a brother to me, so it really kind of pisses me off. So, yeah, it made Gustafsson kind of public enemy number one.
Before I let you go, DC, what was it like in the back when you were with your family and you had the 2 belts? After everything you've been through in your life, after last year crying, what was that moment like?
It was surreal, man. My wife told me, "Are you amazed at yourself?" I said, "Nah." She goes, "Well, I am." She goes, "Because you just did some crazy stuff." I was like, "Yeah, I know, right?" She's like it's crazy, Daniel. And my kids are just so happy. And, you know, when I'm talking to Selena about right, with little Daniel and Marquita, and they first went against Volkan, and they loved it. And my son just loves being at the fight. I was like, are they going? You know, like, are they going? You know, this was a little bit different. You know, going up to fight the greatest heavyweight of all time. You know, there's potential that this could be a hard visual for them to forget if I lose. And she said, yeah, they're going. She goes, they need to see what their dad does and appreciate why he's not home so much. So we took him. And I'm so glad we did because they loved it. And after the fight, they came into the Octagon for the first time. And you know what the first thing my daughter said? Ooh, it's very soft. Ooh, it is bouncy. She got it down and goes, it's so soft and bouncy. I was like, wow, of course you would do that, Marquita. I love you to death.
I wish I knew who coined this term, but the term "daddest man on the planet" that I saw pop up on Twitter. I wish I knew who to give them the props. But that story right there encompasses it all. You're still thinking about your kids. You're not ashamed of how you look, but you're still the baddest man on the planet. You just so happen to be a dad of 2 wonderful kids and a loving father. And it's just amazing to see how happy everyone is for you, DC. And I'm sure you've seen that, right? Like just the joy that people have in your feat. They have nothing to do with it. That has to feel great, right?
That is very, very, that's special. It's very special that people care that much about someone that they really don't know. You know, they just know me from what they see in public, and for them to care to that degree is very special, man. We have some of the greatest fans in the world, and I know at times things can be crazy and they're very passionate, but they're just very supportive and loving and caring, and even the ones that aren't. You know, it's like they're just passionate about someone else. You know, all these people that say, I'm not this, I'm not that because of Jones, that's because they like John Jones as much as the people that support me like me. And that's what makes our sport so special.
Enjoy, DC. Again, thank you for doing this. Thank you for always being available. Thank you for having my back over the years, and I hope you feel the same, my man. Thank you. It's just a great thing.
I appreciate it, man. You know, hey, tradition. Win a fight, get on the show. Has to happen. First one every time.
Thank you, DC.
Ariel. I appreciate you, man.
Congrats. Talk to you soon. There he is, the one and only Daniel Cormier, now the heavyweight and light heavyweight champion of the UFC, and now his name forever will be in the history books, which is what he always wanted. He wanted that respect, never got it done in wrestling, and had the issues, of course, in the Olympics, never beat Cael Sanderson, didn't get the UFC title, got the UFC title. There was an asterisk. There's no asterisk on that heavyweight belt, and in many ways it also validates that light heavyweight title. An amazing moment. Okay.